What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I'm Ronan Gaine. Joining me, as always, Chris Nambu. Thank you so much for making this podcast your first go-to for NBA coverage. Remember, you're on YouTube. You like what you're hearing? Make sure you subscribe. Leave us a comment. You're listening on Spotify. Drop that review. Give us a follow. You do that, and we'll keep producing that content. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the ESPN 100 list that had a few surprises on it, and we're going to be discussing that. We'll be talking about the Chet versus Wemby battle and the race for Rookie of the Year this year. And we'll finish off. We're going to be talking about some fantasy NBA sleepers. So if you guys are playing fantasy out there, maybe check these guys out. They could really shake up your teams this year. Before we get into it, though, Chris, how you doing, man? You good?
Pretty good, dude. We got some actual basketball to look at. Now we can move on from our summer league ridiculous projections to overreacting to preseason. And pretty soon we'll be overreacting to the first 3 games of the season and be making all sorts of crazy recommendations, like who should have on your fantasy team and whatnot. But I am very excited. Are we going to start off with Chet and Wemby? Because that was our homework this week, to take a look at them. And they got me excited. Wemby got me excited.
Yeah, man, let's do it. Let's do it.
The mailman doesn't deliver on a Sunday.
If you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
Anthony for 3. Bang! J.R. Smith! We just saw men fly. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Chet versus Wemby was technically a number 1 versus number 2 overall pick a battle. Obviously, Chet went in the previous draft, but this is still his rookie year. And the two of them, they really look like they just went out there and both of them knew who they were playing against. They're like, right, let's go out and show what we can do. Show that I'm the top dog here. And it was a really fun performance from the two of them to see, especially in a preseason game. And it really has you excited to think that. I think they face up again November the 14th, and I'm marking that on my calendar. I want to watch that game.
Yeah. I think the first thing that jumped out to me about both of those players is comfort level, and especially with a lot of the critics talking about their size, how comfortable they'd be in the NBA, especially playing at the 4 or the 5, playing down low with their, they just got slight bodies or too tall. They got injured. We saw Chet get injured the first time he played up against LeBron. And everyone's like, see, players like that aren't going to last. The comfort level they had with their skill set was just so obvious. And yeah, it's preseason, but you're playing against NBA talent. And this is the first quarter. It's not like fourth quarter, 10 minutes in, you're playing against like third string guys. They looked like they belonged there, and they looked like their skill set matched exactly what both their teams are trying to do. And it was just awesome to see. I didn't come away from watching them having a lot of questions about, what this team is going to need to do to adjust to them, and they look like the real deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I was watching that game and just see the two of them going back and forth and thinking like this could genuinely be like a real battle, like we saw like the LaMelo, LeBron James back in 03-04, like that sort of level of competition in terms of the level of rookies that could be in the league this year. And not like, obviously not forgetting Scoot Henderson as well, but these two really have that element of talent. And one thing that I really liked about Chet is that he had 2 looks, I think, open from 3, nailed them both. And I think that's an element that's going to really help this OKC team, that he's going to spread the floor. You're going to have to respect him. Like, if you give him open shots, he'll hit them. If he's under pressure now, maybe he'll probably struggle a bit, especially in his rookie year. But if you leave him open, he will punish you. And that's going to be great for the Thunder, because the guys like Jalen Williams and Shai really like to get in that paint as well. And if Chet's spreading the floor, that's really going to work for that team. And if you see them both, obviously both had 20 points. Chet obviously was 9 boards as well, went 2 of 2 from 3, had a block. Wemby 20 and 5, 2 steals and a block. And just watching the variety that he had with his offense and the handle that he had for the guy that his size, it's really scary. But it was definitely an insight to Chet as well, that what he can do. Obviously, it's not a realistic one, maybe because Shai wasn't playing in that game, so maybe he won't have as much freedom as he did on the offensive side of the ball. But I think what we saw from Wemby, it's very interesting, especially how quickly he was getting up the floor. Did you notice that when the way he was running the floor?
God, yes.
That was, obviously he can get up there in like 5 steps, which helps, but The fact that he was that was the first thing. Every time there was a rebound, every time there was a turnover, he was straight up the other end of the floor, and it's going to be interesting to watch if that continues throughout the seasons.
Yeah. And both of them, like everything you mentioned, is like they are so similar in their skill sets. I think one thing that sets them both apart is the ball handling. Because I mean, you look at Chet. I mean, his ball skills are great for a big man, and his shooting off the dribble for a big man is. I mean, name another 7-footer that's shooting off the dribble. Well, Wembanyama. That's pretty much it. And the pace too. We started talking about the Spurs last week and how surprisingly they're number 1 in pace. And Wemby is absolutely going to drive that. And I think they're going to be right up there this year. I think it's going to be a major point of emphasis for them, just seeing it on the floor in action. And the fact that he not only is taking up the floor, but he's getting ball screens. He's legitimately, facilitating this offense from the perimeter like a playmaking wing, and not just. I mean, it's crazy to me that there's going to be so many, strategies on how to stop him and trying to take away that perimeter attack from Wemby, because he can legitimately handle the ball well enough to like play a pick and roll to get these dribble handoffs. And that's what really surprised me. Chet, if you watch Chet against any other big man, like he would really shine, and all the things that he's doing is going to shine because he's doing a lot of the same things. He's taking the ball, he's taking up the court, and he's, attacking a mismatch. He's getting all the way to the rim. He's going to do like a give and go. Like there's a lot of actions that he is able to get to dynamically as a big man, but Wembanyama just takes it to a whole other level. So I think it's one thing that's interesting about this matchup in particular, looking forward into the future, is that Wembanyama is going to be that kind of guy that you need to, as a team who's going to compete in the future, figure out how to defend. And most importantly, figure out who you draft or who you trade for to try to build a defense against him. Just like you need to have a defense built around Giannis, you need to have a defense that can somehow figure out Jokic and Embiid. You need to have a guy like Chet Holmgren. And OKC, a team that's young, that's like looking to compete within the next 3-4 years, they have that guy. Chet is probably one of the very few players you can go one-on-one against Wembanyama and you feel comfortable. And I can't think of many others outside of, an Anthony Davis, a Giannis, that's going to be able to really match up with his size and perimeter ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think that this could genuinely be the birth of a rivalry, not just as 2 rookies, but 2 guys who are hoping to be obviously the 1 or 2 star of a team looking to win titles in the West over the next 3-4 years, which is going to be really exciting. And that to see that in preseason, then like looking forward to them playing those few games during the regular season, that there's going to be really exciting battles there, and it's going to be great to watch these 2 as they move through their rookie campaigns. One thing I really liked about Chet that I noticed is, saw it on both ends, his ability to kind of withstand the contact. Obviously, he had a couple of and ones where he just went through guys, and on the defensive end as well, they're trying to bully him in inside, and he just stayed up straight and got the block in. So that was obviously a good sign. It's obviously something you worry about when a guy's a rookie, and especially with such a lean body that he has. But if that's something that is sustainable throughout the year, obviously it might be a little bit different when he's going up against the likes of an Anthony Davis or a LeBron or someone of that nature. But even if it can hold up to a pretty solid level, that's a big plus for a rookie in Chet that obviously OKC are looking to build their defense around. In terms of the race then for Rookie of the Year, what are you looking at there? I mean, for me, I was obviously I've tooted the horn of Chet over the last while, but I think watching that game and then even watching the game against the Heat last night, I think the only thing that's stopping Wembanyama is if his shot doesn't hold up. I think that's the only thing that's really stopping him.
The game against the Heat was hilarious because it's like on both ends of the floor, the things he does at that size is so funny because, again, Chet's an amazing player for what he does. And I think he has a defensive player of the year written all over him. And I do think that, just to stand Chet for 1 second, that, you mentioned if he's going to have that much freedom with Shai, I do want to disagree with that a little bit. I think that, what Shai is going to bring is going to even amplify that more. Just the way that Chet spaced the floor, he knew where to be at all times. The way he's following shots, getting offensive rebounds, the way he's cutting into open lanes that are going to be created by Shai. The way he really understands the system and where he needs to space the floor and how he needs to play in the open court. I think that's going to continue to complement all their playmakers. And all that said, I think Chet should be like a rookie of the year in most cases. Wembanyama is just like if things go right for him this season, I don't see why he's not like a top 15 player. Like seriously, like it's if he can play the minutes, we'll see if he can. He's playing like 30 minutes a game, like, and he's not getting injured, and the way he's still getting boards, the way he's going to be getting blocks, the way he's going to be hitting threes, the way he's going to be facilitating this offense, like as a rookie, that there's no question, there's no race right now. There's no race. Nobody else is going to come close. And I'm laughing at the Heat game because, you know, we already got a taste of what he does, you know, at his freakish size, like the alley-oop where he just gives and goes at the perimeter, and he's immediately calling for the alley like one step from the free throw line, and I want to say he like took off from the free throw line. He barely even jumped. He just hovered, and he just put it in. And then the other play where he has like a crossover at the wing, and he just basically teleported to the free throw line in his fadeaway with like three people around him, and there's not anyone within like a foot and a half of his shot. Like stuff like that is, you know, when you watch the highlights in Europe, you're not sure how sustainable that is in the NBA, and it is a preseason. How sustainable is that going to be against, you know, a defense for, you know, the full game, real defense? Maybe not, but the flashes of this. And then the thing that I'm really laughing about is when he's on a non-shooter on the floor and he can float around, nobody can shoot. Legitimately, he can actually cover like 70% of the floor. If you put if he's on a non-shooter, if you don't have 5 shooters on the floor at a time, you're not going to be able to score on that side of the court. And even then, when the ball is swinging to the opposite side, like he somehow finds a way to disrupt it. Like by himself, he can defend an entire offense. So I don't know, man. It's all the haters out there who are just thinking ESPN was just going too crazy about this prospect. Like seeing it in person is just astonishing.
You think of the little things where he you always say like, oh, if you get a step on a guy, you usually have a pathway to the rim. You have to get like 3 steps on Wemby if you're going to get to the rim around him, because he can just make up the ground, and he's the length he has. He's still going to be able to block you, which is obviously a huge deal. But obviously I think it's going to be clear. The only thing, like you said, is it's the all around, like the shot is not there. That's the only thing that's going to let anyone else even probably get votes for rookie of the year. I think he's still going to be up there because he's still going to be averaging like 20 and 10 and probably a few blocks as well. Yeah. I don't think Miller and Scoot Henderson, they could have solid years, but I don't think they're going to even be in the conversation really. I think it's going to be Wemby, and then Chet will get a bit of noise. It'll probably be like a month spell where like Chet's really doing well and Wemby's kind of struggling a little bit. But I think for the most part, it's going to be an easy show for Wemby to claim rookie of the year. I think you're in agreement with that, yeah.
Yeah. Did you like the thing you said about, you know, getting a step on a guy, like the play against Jalen Williams? It was continuing to impress me. Like he's really, Jalen Williams, just to give him a little shout out, looks even more confident on the ball. And for any other player, like he had Wemby turned, like he crossed into the middle and he did like textbook. Use the rim as protection. Was going to finish on the other side of the rim, going left, and it looked like a surefire. Like Wemby was facing the opposite side of the floor by the time Jalen Williams was passing. He was passing his hip. He was probably 2 steps ahead of him, and no one on the planet should be able to block that shot. Jalen Williams, 6'7", athletic, reverse layup, and Wemby somehow blocks it at its apex. It hadn't even come close. Like when he was so late to that shot, but somehow was able to block it, and like stuff like that. You're going to see that every single game, and no one else, no rookie, no one in the league is able to do stuff like that. So, but
yeah, it's going to be insane watch. But it's nice to see that at least through the preseason he's living up to the hype so far, and let's hope it continues, because it's a pretty fascinating player to watch and pretty fascinating to see on an NBA floor. Moving on, then let's talk about this ESPN 100 list. Obviously, I know this is something that you love talking about, Chris. These are your favorite things to talk about all the time. But there were some interesting points here. The main one coming with the position of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But let's just lay it out. The top 10, the ESPN ranking, top 100, the top 10, Giannis at number 1, Jokic number 2, Joel Embiid at 3, Doncic at 4, Curry at 5, Tatum at 6, Durant at 7, SGA at 8, and then finishing it out 9 and 10, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Are you more? I don't know if I'm more annoyed at SGA above LeBron or Giannis above Jokic. I think Jokic has earned the right to be the number 1 here. I think as small as the margins are between him and Giannis, he should have been number 1.
The top three, like the top 3 are always going to be like such margin, like tiny margin for error, and I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that, and I think you can argue all day about both of them there, and they're 1 and 2. That's fine. I sense that you're not too happy about where Shai's at compared to LeBron.
I just think it's a little bit too soon. I can get it, but I think it's just a little bit too soon. I think Shai maybe should have been around somewhere in like the 12 to 15 rank. I think somewhere around there be a bit more realistic. But at the same time, he could go out and do the exact same as he did last year again this year, and then I'll just shut me right up. Not to say that it's an offense that he should have been above LeBron or anything like that. It's just I think maybe just a little bit too soon.
I would say that I wouldn't have minded putting Shai over Luka. I wouldn't have minded putting him up. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just legitimately had, like, probably had a top. I don't know. It's hard to say position wise, and it's all subjective. But I think all around, he had a better season than Luka last year. He's more efficient. Maybe he's not shooting as many threes, but he proved to me at least that his youth is not really a factor anymore. Like, his inexperience is not a factor, and he's now like cemented himself into this echelon. And he had a more productive year than LeBron. He had a Michael Jordan-esque year last year, and LeBron did not. Now, who was in the playoffs? That's not what this is about. But who's gonna? I think. What's the point of this list? And that's not a rhetorical question. But it kind of is when you sent it to me. I'm like, why do I? What? First of all, ESPN said that he's a shooting guard, and that's not even the last.
No, they had him as.
Did they list him as a point guard?
They had a point guard, yeah.
Okay. I thought I read that wrong then. But Shai, I think the point of this list is very near future. So, like, who is going to be like the best players in the league this year? And I would say that Shai's going to have a more productive year than LeBron. I think that's a fair thing to say. LeBron's not going to play as much. Now when LeBron, if he's rested in the playoffs, is he going to take the Lakers to a championship? Am I more confident of that than Shai doing that? Yeah, but that's a little bit different than having being a more consistently dominant player throughout the year, which Shai can do because he's younger. I don't have a huge problem with it. Because I think LeBron's not concerned about being a top 100 player. LeBron's going to be concerned about being ready to take the Lakers to the finals.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. You've made a good argument there. I think that's pretty fair. Anything else in there? The top 10, Doncic ahead of Curry. Would there be any beef with that?
I didn't love that either. And again, maybe this is projecting. And we say this like every other pod. Like is Luka gonna finally put it together to be the face of the NBA this year? Asked it last year, we're asking it again this year. So I mean, putting him there kind of, you put together that hype of how he looked in FIBA physically, and then just assume that that's going to translate this year like we did last year, and then that makes sense. I think Luka has a potential to be a better, quote unquote, better, more productive player than Curry. I think, again, same thing with Curry and LeBron, getting the Warriors healthy, having a little bit more help from Chris Paul to to, keep the Warriors afloat during the regular season. Maybe you see Luka have a resurgence. Maybe you see Curry kind of chill out a little bit as they prepare for a more productive postseason. That makes sense. I'm not like hugely upset with that. I think Tatum should have honestly been over Luka after the season he had.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think Celtics fans should be a little bit offended at that, because I think Tatum has proven he's going to continue to be the player he is, and he has been more productive than Luka on both sides of the court. He's done more to control the game on both ends of the floor. And if you talk about his inconsistent, I think the thing with Tatum that hurts him is how successful he's been, and then like he's just held to a much higher standard of like, well, you didn't win you didn't win a championship. You fell apart at the biggest stage. Well, we didn't even get to see Luka fall apart at the biggest stage. Luka didn't even have a chance to compete there because his team wasn't there. So, but I digress. Yeah. Don't have a huge problem with the top 10.
I do agree, though. I agree with the Tatum line, though. I think he definitely deserved to be higher. I did like his position. I did like that he was in there over the likes of LeBron and Durant. I respected that. I think that was the right move. I think, but when you mentioned that he could have been higher, I think you're right. I think as a two-way threat, and I think this year, I think you could look at it and see that it'll be that way, because obviously both players should have MVP level years, but I think Tatum's going to have it, and he's going to have it with a number one seed Celtics and the team, and is going to be doing it on both ends of the floor, which we may or may not see from Luka Doncic. Before we get into some of the kind of the more outlandish ones and some of the things that we saw with that list, let's just look at the top threes and see if there's any issues there. So we'll start off with the point guard. Top 3 point guards in the league: Doncic, Curry, SGA. That's fair enough.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I didn't have a huge problem with that.
No beef with Dame not being in the top 3 there.
No, I don't, because we'll see what we get out of him defensively. We haven't seen him play in a little bit, and who do you argue to kick out of there?
Yeah, that's fair. He obviously you're gonna say SGA. He's only done it for 1 year. That's the line that would work there, but it's not going to hold up too often. Shooting guard: Booker, Anthony Edwards, Mitchell. I think that's fairly straight cut.
Yeah, that's
you got a beef there.
When you kind of are really, like I said, the lines are so thin, like who you're choosing. So Anthony Edwards and Donovan Mitchell is a really interesting conversation. I'd love to say Anthony Edwards, but I don't know. What's your bias? Because I know you love Donovan Mitchell. I know you love Anthony Edwards a lot, and just not getting too deep into what they did last year, because I think a lot of that had to do with their team and team construct. I think Donovan Mitchell had an excellent year. I think Edwards did the best that he could for the dysfunction there. But what is their future? Is Donovan Mitchell, is he what he is, and he's not going to become more?
Probably. And I believe that Ant will be more. I believe Ant will really become that guy that we have seen Donovan Mitchell fail to become. But at the same time, at this moment in time, the Ant has not done that yet. So maybe it'd probably be fair to maybe say that Mitchell maybe should be above him. But in terms of that point, I think you're right. I think Donovan Mitchell is who he is. Maybe with the right growth in that Cleveland team, they could become a team that get to the Eastern Conference Finals or even make it to the NBA Finals. But we have seen enough of Donovan Mitchell to know that he's going to deliver. He's going to be a really great player in this league. But as a lead guy who's going to be in the conversation for MVPs and really in the conversation for the best in the league, I think Anthony Edwards has got that ceiling, whereas Donovan Mitchell is just, unfortunately, at this stage, he's just not there, and it doesn't look like he's going to get that jump in him either.
That's fair. Small forward position is interesting.
Tatum, Durant, LeBron. That's the top 3.
Butler. Jimmy Butler doesn't deserve to be there.
He doesn't.
Right on the cusp. No. That's a question. That's a question.
Okay.
Durant. I mean, I know this is such a hard thing because Durant is the one who obviously is the more talented player. So what does top 100 mean? What does top 100 mean? Jimmy Butler has been an Iron Man and has brought this Miami Heat team to countless points of being competitive. And I think that he's had a more successful run past 5 years than Durant has. Like that's just undeniable. Like Durant hasn't been able to be as successful as Butler has from what Butler has done on both ends of the floor, being a leader and being committed to this team and like being part of Heat culture, all that jazz. Like I don't know. I think it would have been more fair to Butler for him to be in that top 3 than Durant. Even though everyone knows Durant is quote unquote the more talented player, what has that brought?
I get that point, but one thing I will say is that Durant is still the type of player where it kind of begins and ends with him. Whether it's success or failure, it's on Durant's shoulders. That's the same with LeBron. That's the same with Tatum. With Jimmy Butler, as much as he is the lead guy and as much as he is the guy that's the difference maker for the Miami Heat, I still think there's an element of almost surprise, and we're still really impressed when he does these great things in the playoffs. And it's not a question of, oh, Jimmy failed when the Heat don't get the job done. It's not that question. It's how great he was to get them to that position. I think that's the kind of mindset I would have when you think of why Jimmy's not in the top 3 there.
I know, and that's I think that's all narrative. So I think just being like real, like what are these players actually doing? And that's the thing with why like I'm fine with Shai being in the top 10 because he earned that. Like he earned being there. Like
talking earning it, then I think you think you could definitely make the argument that especially with that playoff run last year, that Jimmy should definitely be in the top, if not the top 10 of the list as a whole, definitely in the top 3 when it comes to the small forward position. That's for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, like looking, I always love seeing Jimmy on these lists though, because like I bought Jimmy Butler's jersey his rookie year because I love, like, he was just like a scrappy player, and like he was the rookie that I remember this was like one of my favorite first stats, like he held LeBron to like the lowest like shooting percentage compared to anyone else who defended him back when he played on the Heat. And to see him evolve in the player he is today, and it is true, like, you know, it does start and end with Durant, because like a guy like him, you know, he is that guy that if he plays to his best, like you would trade Jimmy Butler straight up for Kevin Durant. Like you play that game, who is the better player? But Jimmy Butler has also like it's cool to see that he's brought himself to this level of player where I can talk about like, all right, Durant or Butler, I don't know, because you've seen what Jimmy's been able to do, and you can actually make an argument. Before it was like, is he maybe close to James Harden, and then James Harden pulls away, but now like there's no question Jimmy Butler's had such a sustained run of success that I don't think a lot of stars have had over the past 5-6 years. Yeah,
for sure. And obviously the biggest regret of the Philadelphia 76ers life is letting Jimmy go and signing Tobias Harris. That was just wow. Yeah. Well, I'm still never going to get over that. I'm sure Jimmy's probably happy enough being out in Miami. He's had way more success than the 76ers had, but if he had stayed in Philly, I believe they would have at least made it to a finals, I think. Power forwards then, Giannis, Anthony Davis, and Sabonis. I mean, Sabonis and Anthony Davis are centers, but they were listed as power forwards. So the top 3 power forwards in the league, obviously Giannis is number 1. We know that. And then you got Davis and Sabonis. If you think of them as power forwards, then I guess it's a fair list. But let's be real, they're centers there.
I'm okay with Davis because Davis plays. I got to go back and look at the numbers of what his share was at that position, but he does still play a fair amount at the power forward. But I don't. How many minutes is Sabonis actually playing at the 4?
Yeah, Sabonis is such a 5. Like I don't know.
It has to be lower than 10%.
Yeah,
like not even close. Not even.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a weird one. When I saw that, I was kind of like, what did just not have enough power forwards on this list that they had to show him in a power forward or something like that?
So if we take him out, that makes Siakam a top 3 power forward in the league. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was at 25, wasn't he? I think so. Yeah.
And I think that is also an interesting thing to think about. Like,
yeah, it seems kind of crazy.
Siakam, a guy who is on a Raptors team. We still have no idea what they're doing. A guy who is an all NBA, he's an all-star, fantastic player. Now he's consider him really top 3 power forward. And then you look right behind him too, like 2 surprises. Lauri Markkanen would have been number 4.
Yeah.
If I think back 3 years ago, Lauri Markkanen being the 4th best power forward in the league, like
wasn't even in the top 100 probably a couple of years ago. Yeah?
No, not even close. And now he's in the top 30. So that's the cool thing about this list is it's to look like kind of like long term, like where people have ended up, and that's one reason I can get behind it. So I don't hate it too much. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. And then finishing out, obviously the centers. We obviously know the top 2, Jokic and Embiid. That's totally fair. Then number 3, then it's Adebayo because AD and Sabonis are both listed as power forward. So Adebayo comes in at the 3 spot there in terms of centers in the league.
Okay, well, this is a question then that I was thinking about. If you make Sabonis the center, are you automatically going to say, okay, Sabonis or Bam? Sabonis over Bam?
No, I think I'd still take Bam, but I think if AD was a center, I'd have AD over Bam.
Got it. That's fair. That's fair. That's a correct answer, I'd say. Bam over Cat is correct. Bam over Sabonis is correct. Is Sabonis over Cat correct?
Probably, yeah. In terms of how he facilitates the game, I think he's over there. Yeah,
I agree. Cat's got some work to do. Just that's another, I think, utility of this list is, are some of these listings correct? And I think Cat could have even slid a little bit further, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Especially after last year.
Yeah. What are some I wanted to look at this list too and think about guys that are going to make this list look silly, more silly than making Sabonis power forward, which is already, whatever this list means. Are there any guys who look at this and they're obviously going to outplay their position?
One thing I will say is I saw that Paolo Banchero got put in at the 30 spot. And I was looking at that and I was thinking that's a bold move there to put him up that much. I think there was a couple of guys just behind him where I'm like, I think maybe it's a bit quick to move him up that much. Don't get me wrong, he could have a great sophomore year and really play up to that level, but I think that was a little bit high to stick him in after the rookie year that he had. But in terms of guys who are going to play the position, I think Zion's an obvious one. He dropped down to 57. I actually liked how much he dropped down because of all the injuries and the fact that he's just not on the floor. So I was happy that he had dropped down, but you always know that if he can play 60 games this year, people are going to talk about him as a difference maker. He's going to be one of the elite players in the NBA, and he's going to be a guy that really changes the fortunes completely of the New Orleans Pelicans. So he's definitely the obvious one for a guy that could really jump up this list to go from 57 to maybe probably top 20.
Oh yeah. Like he's the guy that could easily outplay his position. It's just all about health. And compared to a guy like, Banchero at 30, where I think that's like best case scenario. Your sophomore season, you turn into a top 30 player. Maybe he becomes a top 25 player, but I don't mind that. And I think that just goes to show you play for Team USA, that does wonders for you. You have him at 30, you have Mikal Bridges at 33. I know you're just salty because Jalen Brunson wasn't over him.
Damn right.
Jalen Brunson 32.
Jalen Brunson and Randall. Maybe in the future Banchero will be ahead of those, but him being ahead of Randall and Brunson is I think that's a bit crazy.
I think this season we'll see some big things from him. But yeah, Zion at 57 easily is going to outplay that. If he's playing, he plays 60 games, he's outplaying that. I got a couple of curious ones. Kristaps Porzingis at 62. I think he could be
health as well. He's another guy that's health, but he's on the floor for the Celtics team.
Yeah,
he'll outplay that 100%.
Yeah, talking about a guy who is going to be it's tough to, like, Jaylen Brown's obviously like 1B, right? 1A, 1B. And I didn't even get to where he was positioned compared to a guy like Jamal Murray. But Kristaps Porzingis, I think, is a top 40, top 35 player if the Celtics are where they want to be. And I think that, just talking about preseason, just looking at what Porzingis is doing, he easily could be that as long as he stays healthy. And he was healthy last year. I think he could definitely outplay that position. And if the Celtics are looking at another finals run at the end of the season, I think that's because he's a top 40 player. That's what they're banking on. That's why they shifted everything around. And I think Celtics are looking at this and, laughing. Kristaps is going to be a fantastic player for them.
I agree.
And another guy that's very polarizing, and maybe he'll bleed into our fantasy sleepers discussion a little bit. Do you think that Jordan Poole at 72 could have a crazy breakout season? Like you're on the Washington Wizards, you get to do pretty much whatever you want. What's the best case scenario for a guy like him?
I think people, in terms of individual, as an individual player performing to the highest level possible, like Jordan Poole could absolutely be right there, top 30. I think he can have that level of an individual season. Like he can average 26 points a game, shoot a high level from three. I don't know how much team success it will bring, but as an individual, I think he could have a really huge year in Washington.
We're talking like Trae Young-esque.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe not in the system in terms of like points per game, and I think he'll shoot more efficiently from three. I think if he's having a 26 point per game season, shooting maybe 36-37% from three, I think, and maybe even probably 4 rebounds, 5 assists or something like that. I think that's a realistic year for a guy that is likely going to get the keys in Washington, and they're not really going to expect too much in terms of team success. So he was going to go out and play.
Okay. All right. So Ronan Gaine, 72 to top 30. Jordan Poole season loading. Cade Cunningham at 74.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Obviously, another impact of injuries. Obviously, that's taking the toll there. I think he could play up to it. I think obviously there's a lot of pieces in Detroit, so maybe he as an individual might not shine as brightly as he could. But I think in terms of position there, I think you're definitely looking at him, and he'll be wanting to scratch the surface of at least the top 40, top 45 of this season. Obviously, still a long way ahead, but he stays healthy this year. He could definitely play above that position.
I'm way higher on Cade than you are, I think, because I think that Cade Cunningham. There's a reason why. And again, this is hyperbole. That why he's compared to some amazing players like Luka, like Tatum. The way, what he has a chance to do on this Pistons squad that is trying to build towards something this year. If you're gonna be telling me that Banchero's gonna be ranked at 30, I want to see Cade up there, and I think Cade could easily be up there if he's facilitating a Detroit Pistons team that's trying to make a serious push this season. And he got cut short. He got cut short in 12 games, being a kind of player that I think is going to average 25, 7, and 7. Honestly, near triple-double type numbers with the way he can rebound, the way he facilitates as a point guard, the way he can score 3 levels. That guy is nowhere near 74. He's going to blow that number way out of the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. In terms of the playmaking that he can bring, and if he's able to really bring that Piston team together, then that takes him to another level then as well. And then finishing off, you got any last ones? One last one I've got for you. I got Desmond Bane at 61.
Yeah, I had that too. I had that too.
I'm looking at him and thinking, especially those 25 games without Ja Morant, it's going to be his team. He's going to be having the ball in his hands. He's going to be leading that offense. I think he could really, really play above that level and really start to look like him being a legit all-star level player in this game, especially in that early run of the season.
Oh yeah, but people think the Grizzlies are gonna kind of sink down in the regular. They find ways to win, and Bane's gonna be a reason why they win. And without Ja there, like you said, it's gonna be on his head to do all these great things. And I think he can shoot more. He can shoot more. And Marcus Smart, we'll see how Marcus does to get him in those right positions to be a true point guard for him. Because when Marcus Smart is playing like a true point, he's such a great passer, and that's a guy that's gonna help him out. 2 guys, real quick. Well, 3 rapid fire young guards that I think can outplay their position. Anthony Simons at 85, and his other Blazer brother, Scoot Henderson at 78. They are, I think, going to be one of my favorite league pass teams. That dynamic duo is going to be very, very exciting for me. And Jalen Green at 80. I'm 50-50 on a Jalen Green breakout season this year, but nobody's talking about it. And I think that if it happens this season, in his third season here, I really think he's really got all the tools. It's just a matter of, that experience. Did he get enough experience to put it all together to approach the game the right way this season, to pick his spots? And that seems to kind of happen overnight for some players like that, where it's like they finally figure out how to really slow the game down and let it come to them, and then all of a sudden they're easily making like 24 points a game, efficiently shooting. Like, he's got probably the best opportunity to have a big breakout season out of those three. But I'm looking at those guys. I think that Scoot could surprise. Maybe he's even a rookie of the year candidate. Again, there's no competition against Wemby, but what we saw from preseason from him is exciting.
Yeah, no, that's definitely going to be interesting. Obviously, it's likely that it's Simons and Scoot as the backcourt, and probably Sharp coming off the bench. But you could possibly also see lineups where the three of them all play, because they've got size there. But yeah, in terms of those two guys as individuals, I think they could definitely play above that. Obviously, Scoot's going to be only a rookie, so it's kind of tough to really say he's definitely going to be way better than that rank. But I think Anthony Simons is someone that's shown a lot of promise, especially when he's played without Dame. So if he can build on that this year, then he could definitely play above that. Like you said with Jalen Green, it's obviously, does it come together this year? Does it have a positive impact playing with a true point like Van Vliet, or does it kind of impact him a bit negatively? The moves that the Rockets have made, maybe in terms of just the mental side of it, does he still believe in himself to be the star of this team, or does he kind of take it the other way and think that they're trying to consolidate and maybe not really pursue him as the star guy for this team? But in terms of if his head is right, and obviously he's got a new great head coach in Ime Udoka, which he hasn't had his first couple of years in the league, I think that's going to have a real positive impact. And like you said, I think the potential is there to do it, but I think it's also equally likely that he could come out and have a fairly similar year that he had last year. But those are definitely interesting ones. The guards are always interesting ones, because there's just so many of them in the league, and you never really know who's going to pop. But there's always those couple of guys that you didn't fully expect at the start of the year that really pop off, especially that's really happened in the last few years.
I think this is a good time to kind of go into sleepers, if you will, because like looking at the top 100, and then looking at, if you're preparing for an NBA draft, and you want to get the best value. So you don't want to reach for guys, but when you're kind of coming to the end of the draft, getting those picks that is a guy that is going to end up being on the waivers 3 weeks later versus a guy who you're going to keep on your team, be happy you picked him. Those are super good value picks. So one guy I was thinking about is Scoot, and Scoot's outside the top 100. I want to say most Yahoo rankings that usually have him around like 112 to 120s, depending on where you're looking at in category leagues. But if you're at the end, like the last few picks, maybe like 5th, 6th round, and you have a chance to take a rookie like Scoot, don't overdraft him. But I think a guy like him is going to be awesome. Like, his playmaking is on display, and his shooting touch too. I think he's going to be a better 3-point shooter than we gave him credit for. He looks comfortable off the bounce, and his form looks a lot better than it has. And just the flow of the game, you can tell that he is ready to be a point guard, and he's going to be able to get those assist numbers. So I have him as a guy I'd be pretty excited to get if I can get him, around the early hundreds.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's obviously you're always taking a little bit of a risk with a rookie, but at least he's going into a team where I think they have a clearer idea of what they want to do this year. Now that Dame is gone, there's going to be no pressure on them to really be competing. It's going to be a figure it out year, and I think that's exactly the kind of situation that Scoot needs. And like you say, you don't want to go for him too early, but if you can get him as a late pick, I think he's a guy to definitely keep on your watch list and keep an eye out for him as you go later in the draft. Who you got? Who's your second guy?
Sticking in like guys outside the top 100 for fantasy rankings, Jabari Smith Jr. at 112.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy I'm really interested in.
He's getting tipped a lot to have a big year. Yeah,
You can get you boards, He can get you blocks. We'll see about his steal numbers, but the 3-point shooting I think is going to have an uptick this year. Like I think he's going to have a lot more opportunities shooting in this new system, and he's going to have, I think, a little bit more comfort off the bounce. I mean, he just in these past few, preseason, summer league, just looking at how he's playing with a lot more confidence shooting the ball, and I think it's going to translate into more opportunities than what he had last year. So it's one of those things where you kind of see how it goes for the first couple months after you draft him. But if you're drafting him in like the 120s and the 1-teens, like that's big value, because I think he can end up being a guy that produces for you both in defensive counting stats and as a shooter. And you don't find a lot of those guys. You don't find a lot of guys that are going to shoot well for you, get you threes, and get you defensive numbers.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's being tipped to really have a really breakout year, especially after struggling a lot in his rookie campaign. Obviously, the new coach, a lot of new players in Houston. I think he's going to be a guy that people are going to forget about, and I think he's definitely one you could snatch up late, and he can have a really big impact for a lower level pick. I think he's one that you really look at and think of, I'll be happy to keep in my team, because I didn't draft too high. I'm not going to expect him to be freaking averaging 25 and 10 or something this year, but I think as a lower level pick, I think he's definitely legit. And who's rounding out your sleeper list then?
All right, my last one, Keegan Murray at 133.
Ooh,
a no-brainer. If Keegan Murray is sitting in the 130s and no one's reached to take him, that is a no-brainer. Even I would even take him really in the 120s, late 1-teens, because you're going to get threes from him. He's going to shoot at a super high clip. He's going to be a plus 40% three-point shooter. He's going to get rebounds. And the question for him is how many opportunities he's going to get. The Kings didn't make any major changes. I mean, I think Keegan Murray is going to be potentially one of their major changes this year in his growth. How comfortable is he going to be scoring off the dribble? Maybe that makes him a little bit more inefficient, but his free throw shooting is going to be on point. He's going to be a high percentage shooter there. He's going to be a high percentage three-point shooter. And I think this year he's going to get more opportunities to score individually. So a lot of ways for him to grow. And the worst case scenario, he's a guy that's easily going to get you, a handful of threes every game.
Yeah, I think I like that. I like that thought, especially if he takes that kind of extra leap, because obviously he was an older player, but he had a really good impact on that Kings team. And a lot of people are kind of thinking, oh, he's not really going to get to any greater level than he was already at. But I think there is the potential for him to get that sort of jump, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him this year. And the Kings as a whole, I think they're a team that not a lot of people are talking about after their great year last year. And people are kind of thinking, oh, the other moves that people have made, maybe they're going to drop off a little bit. I think they're still in a position where they can deliver, and I think Keegan Murray is going to be a really key part of what that Sacramento team are trying to do. And if he really pops off, I think they're going to be looking and thinking maybe they're not going to be able to do it in the playoffs again, but in terms of regular season, I think they should still be aiming for a top 3 seed out there, and Keegan Murray is going to be a big part of that.
Oh, absolutely.
We move on to my guys now. I think mine are a little bit more maybe realistic and not as big as sleepers as you've gone for there. I think
mine are unrealistic. That's fair. That would make sense with the teams I've drafted recently. Just a lot of hopes and dreams on my teams.
I go for one that could go either way, but I think one way or another he's going to be a solid pick. Now, don't jump on him too early, but Tyrese Maxey is a guy that I think he could end up going high in drafts, but I think if you can get him somewhere outside of the first couple of rounds and out when all the stars are gone and he's kind of like a first option there, I think that's a really good spot for him, because especially if Harden leaves, he's definitely going to take that increased role. And even if Harden's still there, I expect to see more growth from him this year. Obviously, averaged 20 points per game last year, shot over 40% from 3. I think if Harden goes this year, I think you could look at him as a guy who's going to up his steal numbers. He's going to up his assist numbers, not to anything crazy, but like 5 assists, maybe 1.5 steals. He's going to be able to average like 23, 24 a game, and he's still going to shoot a high clip from 3. The only worry you'd have from him a little bit, maybe if there's more production required from him, maybe his efficiency drops a little bit. But in terms of what he can deliver and in terms of where you can get him in the draft, I think he's definitely a smart pick.
Yeah, and like where would you be taking him? What's a reach?
Well, it's kind of hard. Like in our one, when we do, it's like price wise that you're paying for these guys. So like, what sort of realm are you looking to get him in? If you're getting him in like I guess you're looking if we can find him outside the top, what is it, maybe top 30, top 35 players. I think that's a great area if you can get him in that realm. Maybe that's a bit too chopping him a bit too low, but I think if you can get him in that area, then you're really cashed in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like fantasy wise, like I think he could be a top. Like it's possible he could be a top 30 fantasy player if Harden leaves and he's got, because it's all been about opportunity for him. Like if you look at his numbers when Harden's not there, he jumps. He doesn't, his numbers go down a little bit, but he still stays efficient. He still stays, his assist numbers go up, his scoring shoots way up. And I think he's a guy that if you're able to snag him like in the mid rounds, if you're paying for him, like if you get him for like $20 in an auction draft, or if you're getting him in like the, after like pick 50-ish or so, like you're getting a steal there. I mean, he's a guy that, he's still going to produce for you, even if Harden is still there. But then if Harden leaves, then that, like, the sky's the limit for this guy. Really.
Yeah, see, that's a big switch there. It's obviously probably not going to happen before the start of the season, so you might not have the option to bank on that. But I think banking on him leaving at some point during the season is probably fair, and I think that's when you'll really see Maxey explode. So definitely keep an eye on him then. Next guy is a guy that we always tip to take that step to be that next guy, and it's Alperen Şengün. He had a really solid year last year, 15 points, 9 boards, 3.9 assists, just under a steal and a block per game. I think this year he could really step up. I think he showed really nice growth last year, and I think we could see a similar sort of level this year. Wouldn't be crazy if he's either side of 20 points, either side of 10 boards, up there around 5 assists, blocking a steal per game. He's going to deliver across the board. 3-point shooting, maybe that's an area that might take a hit, but if you can get him in a similar sort of spot to Maxey, maybe even a little bit higher, I think he's definitely a smart fit, especially as a fantasy player.
Yeah, I have a tough time with Şengün in fantasy, at least. Like I want to believe in what he's going to do this season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little concerned about Udoka's presence there.
Okay.
Is Udoka going to want, because dude, if you have a coach there that wants to use Şengün as an offensive hub, like this guy could dish. Like this guy could be like a 5 assists per game kind of guy, at least 4.5 assists per game kind of guy. If Udoka doesn't love him defensively, does his minutes take a cut? Does he start running small lineups out there? Like I don't know, like running Jabari Smith at the center, running Tari Eason at the 4. Then you're going to see his minutes take a cut. And then you kind of compare that. If you have the option, you can take Şengün, Claxton, or Kessler. Are you taking Şengün?
Yeah, when you say it like that, probably not. But I'm gonna hope. I'm gonna lean towards the right angle and think out of the 3 of them, who's going to deliver the most across the board. I would still say it's Şengün, but like you said, the point you made there, that would definitely make me a bit hesitant there, and maybe go for a Nick Claxton, think of him as a lob threat and a block presence.
He's got a higher ceiling. Like if he can become like more of a facilitator, if he, I mean, are we believing that he grew up to 7 feet? That actually happened. maybe it did. Like, I mean, that's huge. I think a lot of times, like he's got great position on the boards. He's just got a couple inches less than these guys. But yeah, I really want to believe in Şengün, and that would be a really fun pick too, because he could really deliver across the board. Who else you got?
One more, and a very interesting one. Now, this is the guy I would definitely urge not to bid too early on, but I think if you can get this guy, I think he could prove a real steal this year. Jaden McDaniels out in Minnesota.
Yes. I agree.
I really like the way his upside is this year. Obviously, last year is showed solid growth. 12 points, 4 boards, 1-on-1, 40% from 3. I think it's not crazy to think of him being a guy that ups all those numbers across the board. Maybe like 18 points per game, 6 boards, 1.5 steals and blocks per game, and still shooting that clip from 3. He's a guy you're going to be able to get late, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be give him more responsibility on both ends of the floor this year, and I think we're going to see a big step from him. So in terms of a legit sleeper, he's not going to be a guy that's really going to kick off and be like a 25 point per game scorer and knocking down 3 threes a game or anything like that. But in terms of a value player that you're going to get late in the draft, I think Jaden McDaniels is definitely a guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, if that's like second to last pick, third to last pick, even if that's your last pick, that's I mean you're really living large, because I mean just look at his 3-point percentage. That's one thing that kind of holds him down. Like rookie year, 36% on 3 attempts, then ups it to 3.6 attempts, 31.7%. And just in terms of his form, like you can see on the floor, he looks more comfortable shooting. He shot 39.8% from 3 on 3.4 attempts last season. And you could just tell how much more comfortable he was on the offensive end. And defensively too, if he's able to kind of get back to being more an off-ball defender, which the Timberwolves have talked about, his steal numbers are going to go way up, way up. Mm-hmm. He's only at 0.9 right now, but he loves to get in those passing lanes, and he's a guy that I think could deliver 1.2, 1.5 steals a game. And his blocks, 1 block a game. Like 1 block a game from the small forward position, that's tough to come by too. So defensive counting stats, 3-point shooter, guy who's not going to be, hawking too much. Great steal.
Yeah, he'll be a legit steal, especially if you get him late, especially like you were saying there. So we'll finish it out then. One of us each throw out one complete wild card that we think could definitely be a late pick, probably your last pick, but he could definitely deliver big this year. Who you got?
That was my guy. That's why
that was your guy. Okay.
Jaden McDaniels was my guy. I really like the 12, the counting stats, 12 points a game, 4 rebounds, 1.2 assists. I mean, those are all things that I think he'll have more opportunity to do some more this season. But yeah, I mean, that's why I was excited. You picked that out right out of my mouth.
I started finding out. My wild card is Mark Williams out in Charlotte. I think he could have a really steady jump this year, especially if LaMelo Ball is fit and is showing him lob. I think him as a rim runner and a rim protector, I think he could definitely take a jump. Obviously, last year he averaged 9 points, 7 boards, and a block a game. Shot really efficiently because he's only going to be taking shots in and around the rim. Only started 17 games last year. Only played in 43 of those. I think this year with LaMelo, and he takes that sort of jump, he's given that license. He's the lead guy, the lead center for this team. He could be a guy that averages like 14 and 10 and a couple of blocks a game. I think he could really be a legit late, definitely a late pick now. Don't go jumping on him, but in terms of a guy that could maybe fall in your draft and could definitely deliver solid numbers throughout the season, I think he's definitely a smart pick.
Yeah, I think centers it's a really hard one to come by in fantasy sometimes, because people hoard centers. Like everyone's snagging centers left and right, and sometimes you're left like with your Daniel Gaffords of the world and your Mitchell Robinsons of the world, which is fine, but they don't really go too high. And Mark Williams
knocking Mitchell Robinson, okay?
Well, dude, Mitchell Robinson will have like 3 great games and then do nothing for like 2 weeks straight. He's
offensive boards and blocks. He gets that done there.
He's such a frustrating fantasy player sometimes because he could do more, but sometimes he just doesn't get the minutes. But I think Mark Williams could be like a night in, night out type of guy. And if you're getting him like the last pick, or even if you're just like watching him on the waiver wire, like he's a guy that if I'm thinking out loud, like him and Jalen Duren, I'm keeping an eye on both those guys as guys who second year in the league, centers have a tough time as rookies, but just kind of getting the feel for the game. Like those guys start to really come on in terms of defensively, their block potential, getting more rebounds. I'll mention one last guy if we're talking about centers that I think about. If Clint Capella gets traded, I am taking Onyeka Okongwu so fast.
Oh yeah.
That guy, I've been waiting for him to get potential to really have full run with this team. He hasn't really had the chance to be like the guy at the center position, but yeah, Mark Williams, I do like that. He has potential here, especially if LaMelo is healthy, and especially if LaMelo really starts to figure out the pick and roll game out.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I think obviously, let us know what you think. Let us know if you think of any other sleepers that might be smart to pick up in the draft. Let us know how your draft goes. Comment that below and keep us up to date. But definitely keep an eye on those guys. It's always fun when you think when you make that snatch of a late pick and it ends up doing the business for you. But before we finish up, finish off with a little bit of fun, get back to a little bit of NBA Guess Who. One of our games. We always have fun doing this. So Chris, I think we got 2 each today. I think I'll let you start off. Let's see how I get on.
All right. So I am the only player last season to average 3 blocks, 1 steal, and make 35% on my threes. Who am I?
Miles Turner.
Ooh, that's not a bad guess. No, I played for Michigan State.
No. I told you this before. My college knowledge. Unless they play for like Duke, I haven't got a clue who any of these guys are. No, that's not. I'm gonna have to take another. That's not gonna help me.
Oh, come on, man. Michigan State. I didn't give you some random ass college. It's just gonna be yours. I won Defensive Player of the Year last year.
God, how am I blanking on that?
Here's a layup.
Oh, Jaren Jackson Jr. Okay. Okay, you gave me that. You gave me that on a platter there. That was very nice of you, man. I almost blanked them when you said defensive player. Like, who the hell won defensive player?
No, it's the worst. I had to do that to you because you brought up some of these award kind of candidates, and it's funny how quickly they leave your brain. They really do. I don't remember those.
Yeah, no. When you first said defensive player, I thought you were going to say like 2018 or something. I was like, oh shit, I'm definitely not going to know this. That's good. That's gonna be crazy.
All
no,
right.
that's an interesting one. Yeah, Jackson
Get
Jr.
one point for that one.
Yeah, I'll take my 1 point and I'll run. I'm glad I got it. When I heard that Michigan State one, I was like, oh no, I'm out here. Okay, my guy. I was drafted number 13 overall out of Kentucky. Not last year. That was just when he was what position and where he was drafted from.
Okay, I think there's actually 2 guys that went 13. There's literally 2 guys.
Let me get one guess though.
That's so unfair. There's 2 guys that were drafted 13. Devin Booker
is the right answer.
Let's go. I think Tyler Hero was drafted 13. I'm gonna fact check myself.
I have my head he was like 11, but I think he could be right.
Well, I'll snag those 4 points there. He was picked 13th. That's why he got compared. All right, so I had a 50-50 chance there.
Nice. Well, I'm glad. Well, I'm not glad. I'm disappointed that you picked the right one.
All right. You got it. You got to hit it on at least the second one.
Yeah.
I was the 2020 High School Player of the Year. Best player in the country in 2020 going into my recruiting class. And I was the only 5-star recruit for Oklahoma State that they've had besides Marcus Smart.
High school thing is that's clicking with me somewhere, but
yeah, it should. Like this guy was in 2020. This is gonna be the best player in college, and this is gonna be the consensus number 1 overall pick in 2021.
No, see, buddy,
I kind of just gave away the clue of that. You were supposed to kind of think about it.
Yeah, man, it's not gonna click with me. Okay, you're gonna have to give me another one. I'm shooting for the tie here.
I'll cut off a whole conference. He plays in the Eastern Conference.
Say 2021. It's not Cade Cunningham.
It is Cade Cunningham.
It is Cade Cunningham. Okay. When you said he was projected to be the number 1, I was kind of thinking. Then I was like, "Ooh, did he not go at number 1?" Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I'm level up now.
So it is now tied.
I need you to not get the answer here. Okay, this is actually this could be an interesting one for you. This is going to be interesting. I'm excited to see if you get this one. Okay. So I won a ring in the Western Conference, but I now play for a team in the Eastern Conference.
That has to be so many people. Wait, okay. So I won a ring.
Last 5 years, I won a ring with a Western Conference team, and I now play for an Eastern Conference team.
And I'll play for an Eastern Conference team. Within the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like shorter than 5 years? Just any time. Okay. Okay, that could be so many people running. You know how many people at the end of the bench? Is this a bench player, or is this a within a 6-man? Is this a 6-man
No, stop
starter?
asking for this. This is
No, okay, but
clues.
is this a technicality, or did he actually play? Did he actually like play for this ring?
He did play.
He did play. Okay, this isn't like what's his face? That random guy from Golden State that went to the Raptors that I don't even remember anymore. I'm gonna say Jordan Poole.
Jordan Poole is not the answer, but I'll put it this way. He's come off the bench in 75% of his career games, but he would still be considered one of the most important players on his team.
Okay. That's your second clue? Is he comes off the bench 75% of the time, but so he's like a 6-man, very important 6-man rotation kind of guy. Played in the Western Conference. So was he a Laker? Was he within the last 5 years? I'm gonna be pissed if it was like last year. Bruce Brown?
It is not Bruce Brown. No. I was an undrafted guard in 2016.
Undrafted guard in 2016. Okay, an undrafted guard in 2016 who won a championship in the Western Conference. Is he a Laker? I want to say he's in 2016. All right. Okay. I'm gonna go with an undrafted guard. You're killing me.
You know this deep down.
All right, so in 2016, I got, you know, it's funny. I always have to think about like the relationship between like what I was doing at the time. So in 2016, I just graduated college. So what kind of fantasy team did I draft in college? What players were I looking at? Undrafted guy, 2016.
I'll put it to you this way, maybe not a fantasy player.
I was assuming not.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. I think I might have to take the L.
Will I give you the layup? The final clue?
Yeah, for no points. Points.
I'm bald.
Oh man, it's Alex Caruso.
It is Alex Caruso. I told you, man. You knew it deep down.
I knew it was a Laker, and I just could not pull it out of me. He now plays for Chicago Bulls. 2016. Caruso is a funny player because he's the kind of guy that you feel like has been around forever. Also, because he's bald, but he was immediately a player that mattered, and you just forget that he was undrafted. You forget that he won a championship with them. All right, you got me with that. You pulled off the tie.
Are we gonna take a tie there? I have one more. I can give you the win here if you want to try and take it.
No, we'll do it next time. I'll keep it fair. All right. That was good. Caruso was a fair player. That was a fair player. That was a fair one.
I'm glad I was able to freak you out with that one, and you didn't get that right. I'll take the tie. I didn't lose. I'm okay with that. But that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you to Chris for joining me. As always, if you like what you're hearing, make sure you hit us up wherever you get your podcast. We are everywhere at Coast to Coast NBA. Most importantly, remember to take every shot and love every moment.
Peace out.